Hello and welcome everyone to this demonstration of Stagenet. My name is Stefan Ledergerber. I'm from a company called Simplexity in Zurich, Switzerland, and we do consulting specifically for audio and video over IP systems. Today we're going to introduce you to a system called Stagenet. And Stagenet is actually two things. It's first of all a community of manufacturers and users who share the same common conviction that IP, audio-video over IP, must become much simpler than it is today. But Stagenet is also a product. The product is a software product which is developed by a company called Stagenet. Who are the other Stagenet partners? First of all, it's Matrox from the video side, it's Arista from the switch side, it's also Merging Technologies from the audio side, a lot of experience on audio over IP. And actually we as Simplexity are also part of this community. And first of all of them is actually Stagenet, and that's where we are, in the headquarters of Stagenet in Berlin. And right next to me there is Thomas Kmeiner, one of the two CEOs. Thomas, why are you involved as a Stagenet partner?
Stagenet is known for reliable audio distribution systems. It's called Nexus and it's a deterministic system, so you know what you get once you plugged in the cables. Now with IP technology we add flexibility. You can change the system by adding new devices from different vendors or at different locations. However, as it turns out, often you need an expert to change these network settings. And being dependent on an expert contradicts the idea of being flexible. So we return the control back to the user by making it simple. That's why we invest in Stagenet.
The IT industry is actually quite far ahead of the audio and video industry. They show us how easy it can be to connect to a network. Imagine yourself coming to a friend's home. You only need to know the password of the Wi-Fi and here we go. You're connected to the internet and you can possibly even print. That's the vision behind Stagenet, but for audio and video systems. Now, we like to be standardized and we like to use standards. There are standards like AES-67, NMOS, SMPTE 2110. We love them all because it makes our lives easier. However, today they don't define so specifically that we can actually give you the user experience of easiness and plug and play. And that's where we don't want to compromise. You have a right to have a simple to use system and yet dynamically and flexible by adding, removing devices from one location to another one. So that's why we need to tightly integrate with those devices. We are open to any of these protocols and we actually couldn't care less. We want to, at one point, implement Dante or NDI as well. We only care about the user experience and that we reach a real true plug-and-play level. Now further down the line, Stagenet will have a light integration as well, which is purely standardized and purely based on, let's say, NMOS. But that, unfortunately, will ask you as a user to set up the devices correctly so they are working together with everyone else in the system. So let's have a look how it all looks like in detail and also behind the scenes how it works. Let me introduce you to the components of Stagenet. Stagenet is a software. It's actually a server running all kinds of services, including a web server. And the user interface as such is based on, can be run on any browser, basically here on an iPad. We really took care that the operation using your fingers on a touchscreen is easy and the first focus of the paradigms we use. So it's a touch-first paradigm. Let me introduce you to a few pages, the main pages of Stagenet user interface. First of all, a connect page. The connect page shows you sources and destinations, and they are actually indicated by icons which seem to be quite non-technical, and that's correct. This is a content-based page. It should show you content, source, and destinations. If I want to connect, let's say, a presenter's mic, over to, let's say, to a console, I just simply drag and drop one icon to the other one. I see the state of the connection with a play icon, and I see the connected source. By the way, for those of you who are not very fans of drag and drop, it's also possible to just select the source and the destination and use the good old take button up here in the middle. Generally, you see a selection of sources and destinations, and I can tell you there can be thousands of them. And you will be pretty surprised how easy it is to find them, although you have a limited space on your screen. Let's take a full text search here, where I just type in console, and now I only see the console related icons. And if I want to use tags, there are tags where I can basically filter just for broadcast related stuff or whatever. And also creating those tags is as easy as it can get. You don't need to call any expert. Now, there are audio and video sources and destinations. And by looking at the icon, you see immediately, this is a video, this is audio. And actually, let's say strings contains apparently 6 audio channels, 6 strings. So let's look into the strings and open that up. Now I see the content called strings, and I see the different channels in there. And you know what? I just see that the violoncello is twisted. So let me just correct that. I just take that, drag and drop it over here, and that's as easy as it is to shuffle channels. But there's more to the strings section, for instance, as a content. I can also just check, let's say, what's going on in terms of audio metering, and I can trim the mic gains if there is a need for it. Basically, Stagenet is a signal management tool, and it takes care of everything related to the signal to come from A to B. But more than such audio or video content, there are also folders. And inside a folder, I can just check what's, let's say, inside the ingest. And I see, there's video and different audio content in there. So folders are also a very nice way to organize your setup. On the top here, there is a little speech bubble. And the speech bubble is actually a message center. And if there's any problem on the system, it will tell you here. It's a very important focus of Stagenet that it's not just a control system, it's at the same time a monitoring system. And I will show you in a couple of minutes how deep we actually look into the system in order to give you the confidence that the system is all fine and healthy. Let's have a look at the second main page of the Stagenet user interface. It's called Network View. And this is actually much more physical and technical. It shows you how the cables are connected between the switch and the individual devices. And more than that, if you want to trace a connection, let me do that for now. I'm going to basically take a connection here and say show signal path. You actually see where the packets are traveling through which cables. So that's the network view. But more than that, the network view is there to show you whether there are any new devices popping up. And I want to show you this based on a specific use case. Let's imagine you're walking into an auditorium, there is a PA, and now you want to speak to the PA via a microphone and a new device which you brought along. For that, I'm going to use the Emerging Technologies Anubis. This is basically a loudspeaker controller, and it also contains some microphone preamplifiers. So I want to connect this device to my system. And for that, I connect it to my network using power over Ethernet. So now it's going to boot, and it's going to take a little while. But while it's booting, I'm going to explain you how it all works, how this device is going to now show up in the system. We are using a registration mechanism called NMOS ISO4. It's a standardized mechanism to discover senders, receivers, devices, even across multiple subnets. So Stagenet is a fully layer 3 routed system and not limited to a subnet. So this device registers itself there, but we also have a built-in security feature. The switch will not allow packets to travel to the rest of the system until you approve the device to do so. So first of all, when you connect a new device, it will be quarantined. And all you need to do to take it out of quarantine is actually approve it once you want to do that. So now the system is booted, and here on the screen we will see in a second a new device popping up because it registered itself in the registration server, which is built into Stagenet. So here it is, the device with a little queue, and all I need to do is go here, press and hold, and say approve. Now there are standard sources and destinations created based on that device. And when I go over to the connect page, I see, for instance, for the XLRs, a standard source, and I'm going to connect that XLR to my main PA here. When I do that, I'm already able to talk through my network to the PA. That's as simple as it gets. And you know what? If my level is just a bit too low or too high, I go here and I have my control and I can trim my microphone preamplifiers right from the Stagenet GUI. So this is as easy as it gets to add a new device which is totally unknown to the system, to your infrastructure. And that's actually quite groundbreaking nowadays. Let's have a look back to the connection view. The connection view connects content. Content can be the strings, as we looked at initially, but it can also be just, let's say, 64 MADI channels. And you could connect just the 64 MADI channels across to a destination like here. But you notice right now, all the destinations or lots of the destinations are grayed out. Why is that? Because if I try to connect to one of the grayed out ones, it tells me channel count exceeded, because I'm just trying to connect a 64 channel source to some lower channel count destination. So what I do is I just connect it to the console with a MADI signal, and now I've just connected 64 channels from A to B through my IP networks. Now, this is all cool, but what I really want to know is, did it really work, or is the system just telling me it did work? And that's where the monitoring functionality of Stagenet comes in. We actually go quite deep, such that we are actually asking the devices to report alarms back to us if they are, for instance, missing packets. So let me show you that in a little demo. Normally, in our Stagenet environment, we have two networks. That means you can lose packets or you can lose cables or connections on one of them while the other one's still working. The key is, in that situation, you want to know that one of your two networks has a problem, right? Even though you don't hear anything or you don't see any problems. Let me show you that. What I do is, I go into the source side, I pick some music here, and I connect it to my previously already introduced Anubis. I've now connected a little speaker to it, and it's connected using two redundant networks. Now, for the demo, I have connected a so-called impairment generator. It's kind of an evil device which can introduce packet losses in a network. So right now it's connected to the yellow network, and I introduce packet losses in the yellow network now. So obviously, because I still have the blue network, I don't hear any problems. And I can basically just listen to my music and it's all fine. But if I now would lose my redundant network, I would have really a problem. And Stagenet already indicates that state here in the user interface, right where you operate the system. For instance, here you see the yellow warning sign, and here in the message center you see there is something wrong. And if you check it out, it says Anubis and Rec 1 stream problem on interface 1, which is the one I just losing packets. So it's correctly detecting that state. So now you can go and fix that problem. Because if you don't, that's what's going to happen. You lose your second network for whatever reason, and then that's how it sounds. because now you only have one network, and that's the one which was already impaired. So it's a very good idea that Stagenet monitors the whole network, the switches, as well as PTP state, as well as the end devices, packets, everything. So you can be confident and you can be trusting the system. So as you can see, Stagenet behind the scene dives quite a lot into the details. Now let me show you how it all relates to video, because so far we have done some tests and demos with audio, but Stagenet also takes care of the video side of things. For that, I'm going to connect yet another new device from Matrox. It's a gateway which converts IP signals, which I'm going to connect right now. It converts IP video to HDMI. So I'm going to do the same thing as before. I connect it to my network and I wait until it's booted and it registers itself onto the network. We're going to see that in a second here when it registers itself on the NMOS registration server. Then I'm going to approve it again to the network, and in this case there is actually not much to set up. There's a video source or video destination in this case, because that's what it's actually is. It's connected to this little monitor. We have now seen the device being popped up with a little queue, and I'm gonna go here and say I approve you to be part of my system. Now I've just basically added a video gateway as a new destination to my system. In this case, there's a portable monitor destination showing up as a folder, and inside the folder I have a video and an audio destination. And that's pretty clever, because now I can connect any kind of video to as a folder to the folder, and it will now automatically connect audio to audio and video to video. I can take another video source which contains audio and video and override it with the first one, and I have video and audio connected right at the same time. And here we go with another feature which is called folder routing. Inside a folder I can have multiple elements, contents, and Stagenet allows you to connect the whole folder to another folder right in one step. Let's take a look at an ingest example. We have a folder, and the folder contains, in this case, one video element and 3 audio elements. A mix in 5.1, a stereo mix, as well as a commentator. If you would route an outside signal from, let's say, a stadium onto your ingest, it will automatically route video to video and audio to audio with a desired order. And if, for whatever reason, you don't like what Stagenet has done in terms of automated stream mapping, you can correct manually by just taking any kind of content and drag and dropping it, overwriting your previously connected destination. For those of you who are technically interested, I'm going to tell you more details about the iceberg which sits below the tip. The user interface is really just the tip of the iceberg, but there's a lot happening in the background. First of all, Stagenet is a fully routed layer 3 network. It contains DHCP servers and everything you need. It runs on a Kubernetes environment with lots of microservices, so there's a lot of room for expansion, and it scales to very big systems if you need. On the setup side, the system takes care of setting up the switch. It actually monitors the switch. It sets up the devices. For instance, in the audio and video streaming, we give a multicast address out of a pool, but we also choose the number of channels which should be included in a flow. We set the delay, we set the number of samples included therein, and so on and so on. And if you don't like what we are doing out of the box, you can change things. Let's have a look at the preferences dialog here. Here, you can actually change the multicast address range you want to use. And you can even define exclusions if you don't want some multicast addresses to be used. You can define the PTP leaders, primary and secondary, and we're going to monitor for you whether they are all okay. So you basically pick the device you want to be the primary PTP leader. Then, finally, you can do some global setups like, do you want to use video compression, yes or no? And if all that is not technical enough for you, you have access to more. Let's look at this receiver which I just created before on Anubis. When I go here, there's an information. And if I go into the information, I find possible errors, but I actually also have the ability to access even what they call an STP file, which gives you all the information about that stream, multicast address being used, etc., etc. And more so, you can also just visit the device website if you want, just right from here. And then you see basically the manufacturer-dependent user interface. So as you can tell, we take care of a lot of very fast ways of working, so you don't have to care about the complexity. Everyone talks about the flexibility of IP networks, but nowadays they are so configured manually that they eventually end up being very static because you don't want to touch it anymore. And in those use cases, that's where Stagenet helps. Stagenet makes your IP network flexible. If you are, for instance, a university, a big hotel, or maybe a performing arts center, you want that dynamic in your network. And Stagenet brings you exactly that. Stagenet could also extend, for instance, an existing Nexus installation if you are already a Stagetech customer. You have a Nexus, traditional audio distribution system, and you want to connect a bunch of devices. Very well possible with Stagenet. If you happen to be a customer and own already 2 Nexus systems, Stagenet lets you interconnect the Nexus systems and kind of form a meta Nexus with one user interface in the middle, Stagenet. And finally, if you just want to extend such a setup with even more devices and add video to it, Stagenet does it all for you. So Stagenet, in short, has its strength wherever you want a flexible, dynamic IP environment. And if you don't have the IP experts at hand 24/7. Ultimately, Stagenet will reduce your operational costs and the license fees will be paying back very, very soon. Stagetech is the developer of this whole system, and they are commercially responsible for it and will also be happy to answer all your questions. Don't hesitate to contact them, and I hope to see you around. Thanks for watching.